Hello, everyone. My name's Billy. My story shows that love is blind, but people in love don't think they are blind or stupid. Alas, they are. Well, I would never have thought this thing would happen to me. Like, I would be sitting on a box under a bridge drinking tea from a tin can, looking with eyes full of love at a real hobo. Yeah, life gets crazy sometimes. Too crazy. But before we move on to the story, please subscribe to the channel. Click the bell button to never miss new stories. Here we go. Okay, it all started with the main street of our town. It was closed for repairs, but I usually went there to get home. So I had to return home from college through the Central Park. Actually, it's not very safe there during the daytime, and in the evening, it's better not to go there alone at all. You could be robbed, but I had no choice, and as ill luck would have it, none of my friends needed to go that way. I had to always go there alone. For the first few days, I just rushed through the park at my top speed, clutching pepper spray in my pocket, and then, well, I got a traveling companion. When some very dirty and shabby guy in smelly clothes appeared in front of me for the first time, I was terrified. I used spray in his face and ran away. I thought that would be the end of the story. No, sir. When he appeared for the second time, I just walked faster and got away. When I saw him for the third time, I asked him what he wanted, because he wasn't a robber as he didn't hide. He always just appeared next to me and silently walked with me to the end of the park. The guy said it just wasn't safe in the park and he was guarding me. Well, I thought, it's disgusting. Some homeless guy is wandering around me when it's getting dark. Well, anyway, it's better to stay with him rather than walking alone. At least I walked with the devil I knew. You never know what other creatures may hide in the park and what may happen, so I agreed. A week later, I caught myself thinking this guy and I are nicely chatting when walking through the park. Yeah, he stank. Yeah, he looked terrible. But he was somewhat smart and well-read, so we could talk on different topics. It turned out Matt, Hobo's name, had an interesting story. He became homeless not because of an accident or something. It was his, philosophy. Like, you're free from everything. You can live as you want and you are outside the system. Well, it turned out Matt has a higher education. He graduated from college several years ago. He sometimes lives in a flop house where he reads different books. But most of the time, he lives in this very park. He got a tent from a friend. Now he lives there, enjoys his philosophy, and helps lonely young ladies to stay away from troubles in the park. He eats whatever he finds in a garbage dump near a local cafe. But sometimes he gets lucky and eats home-cooked food from kind people who support him. Anyway, he turned out to be an interesting person. He even had some sort of charm or something. Well, from time to time, he gave me compliments I had never heard before, or he would even recite poetry to me, sometimes even some of his own. And after about a month of our communication, I discovered that I fell in love. Yeah, with a hobo. I just fell in love with a man who could never be my boyfriend. Well, theoretically. Like, I'm a girl with a good future, prospects, education. I study at college. I want to have a good career, buy a nice house in the suburbs, and have a bunch of kids. Well, it's clear to me, but once I tried to imagine how we would be as a couple, of course, I couldn't. Like, no one would understand. My parents are very conservative. They gave me a very strict education of a real lady. Anyway, Matt and I belong to two different worlds, but there was some sort of romance there. It seems like I should have stopped our communication, but, you know, the heart wants what it wants. Besides, when Matt sometimes washed and got dressed in decent clothes in a flop house, he turned out to have a nice appearance, and his splendid blue eyes could never be hidden even by a week's dirt. Then it occurred to me, well, I could help him. Apparently, this was my last thought. Then my brain just shut down because Matt never asked me for help. On the contrary, he constantly repeated how awesome his life was and he was enjoying it. Frankly, he never offered to be a couple, but if a girl intends to do something, nothing can stop her, especially if this girl is in love. How can I help a hobo? Well, I could find him a job so that he had some money to rent housing and buy some food. So I even missed some of my classes because I spent a lot of time job searching. My friends kept asking me out, but I refused because I was busy. I looked through tons of job ads on the internet. My behavior surprised my dad a lot. Anyway, I found a couple of suitable options for Matt. When we met again in the park, I was already fully armed with the addresses and employers' names written out. I handed it all to Matt. I waited for his joyful smile of happiness and gratitude, but Matt looked at the note in my iPhone and just twisted a finger at his temple. He said I hadn't understood his way of life and his creed at all. He didn't want a job. I repeat, it's not that he couldn't get a job, he didn't want to. That was his wish. He is quite satisfied with his life. I guess after that, a normal girl would give up on Matt and never see him again. A normal girl, yes. Not a girl in love, not me. So I decided to defend my love. For some reason, I showed my GF a photo of Matt I secretly shot on my phone. I hoped she and everyone else would say, this guy's sort of nice. He's cool, and then wish us a happy future. No, sir. My GF said I needed a doctor, or rather, she confessed she had long turned a blind eye on our relationship. But when I showed her Matt's photo and even said that we kissed, she got hysterical and said I really needed a good specialist because there were so many cool guys in college with a good future and prospects, and I chose a hobo from the park. Definitely I had some problems with my head, but I had plans for Matt. I wasn't going to give up on our relationship. I thought I could convince Matt to change his life with all my love and care. I brought him home-cooked food, warm clothes. I even participated in a volunteer program for homeless people. And that's where my parents sounded the alarm, as I've never done anything for charity in my entire life. Moreover, I've never been interested in that. However, Matt stood his ground. No, he liked to take food. He wore my dad's old clothes. He smiled at me and recited poetry. But he wasn't going to do anything to improve his life conditions at all. And it didn't bother me. I continued to improve his life on my own. Well, so what? Why then did the UN invent special programs for homeless people? I mean, like thermos flasks, special camping, warm blankets, and other stuff? So I implemented all of it into Matt's life, trying to show him how good it was when you always have warm clothes and good food instead of leftovers. And I tried to show him how good it is to have a home of your own. Once, I even brought him to my place so that he could warm up and wash. Matt was very delighted with the bathroom and hot shower. He took a couple of books from my dad's library. Then he left us bed bugs as a gift. We all found them when we went to bed. So I had to call an exterminator. At that point, I realized if you really want to fight for love, then you gotta stand to the end. If Matt doesn't want to change, I would change. And I decided to stay with him. Yeah, I understood it would be difficult, but as I've said, the heart wants what it wants. That's how I ended up under the bridge on a cardboard box with a can of tea. Of course, I wasn't going to drink this stuff, but I pretended I was totally happy. Matt recited poetry to me. We chatted as usual. Then he said it was time for me to go home. That's when I gave him all my plans for the future with a happy smile. I thought he'd be happy too, and we'd be a loving couple. Instead, Matt's face suddenly went serious. He told me I played a funny joke, but now I'd better get out. Just like that, without any explanation, he packed up all my things, threw them outside the tent, and commanded I should go anywhere just to be away from him. I was at a loss for words. Why? Everything was fine with us. I even started crying. I thought that I could persuade him to go to work and change his life, and then we would live happily ever after. But Matt just yelled. He had already had enough of me in his life. He went nuts with my stupid behavior, my stupid gifts, and stupid me. The only thing he wanted to do was just walk me through the park. He didn't want to become a victim of my love. He didn't want such a fool next to him. Then he packed up his tent and went somewhere. I was left alone at night under the bridge. I was walking across the park calling his name all night long and crying, but I couldn't find him. In the morning, I went back home. Since then, I don't believe in love. There is no love. Well, maybe in books and movies, or maybe my mom and my GF are right. Falling in love with a hobo is a really bad idea. But now, I don't know what to do. I'm lost. Can you help me? What do you think of my story? Text your opinion in the comments below. Don't forget to like. Feel free to share your stories of forbidden love in the comments. Thanks for watching, guys. Bye.